everybody. I'm here in Washington, D.C., and I'm so honored. I'm here with Congressman Gomert, and I just want to ask him why he's one of the very few who get the threat of Islam in our nation. Congressman, how many people in Congress have actually heard this briefing and know these facts about the Muslim Brotherhood infiltrating our government high positions?
Well, the estimate's probably around a couple of dozen. There have been numerous briefings, opportunities, that is. We've had some in my office, people come by, but the thing is, when you're up here in Washington, there are so many meetings, so many conflicts. Oftentimes, friends, members of Congress that get conflicted, they'll send staff members, and then invariably they'll tell me later, gee, I heard from my staff member how serious this is, and I want to come to the next one. And that's how we've gotten even as many as we have. We got a lot of work to do to educate people on the threat.
How can us as regular citizens get our Congress people to listen?
All it takes is emails, phone calls saying you need to be briefed on exactly what's going on, because the Defense Department is being blinded, the Justice Department is being blinded, the intelligence community is being blinded by this administration, and the purging of records as far as violent Islamists. And we've got a lot of work to do to protect this country, but that's our role. We're supposed to provide for the common defense, and my hope and prayer is we're going to do a better job in the future, but people have got to know. Just email, call, send letters.
You guys really listen to our
calls? They make a difference.
Okay, and my last question is, do you think that Islam is more of a threat to our country than socialism and communism?
Well, I don't think Islam is, but the violent, radical Islam absolutely is. Communism, socialism has been moving forward through our education system, so we have a lot of people asking these.
Come here, please.
Okay.
Everybody's talking so loud.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm worried about communism. I'm worried about the government control, the bailouts, and our freedoms are starting to disappear. So what were you saying about communism and socialism?
Yeah. Well, it seems that socialism and communism are being taught in education in many schools as being just another option, and where everyone shares and shares alike. And they're not being taught that every time it's ever been tried, it fails. Whether it was the Pilgrims having a beautiful socialist compact, basically, or whether it was the kibbutz in Israel. I was over there recently, and they were saying, yeah, they started out socialists, basically communes, but they've had to change because it doesn't work. And the only time a free market system like ours fails is when it becomes so socialist that it then falls of its own weight. And since we now around 47% of the American people are not paying income tax, or they're getting more back than they put in, we're very close to that line where you don't get your country back. When more than half of the voters get more back from the government than they put in, then you're going to become so socialist that you fall of your own weight. So that's one threat that's been oozing its way through our system. And good students I talk to ask, now I understand socialism's not good, but can you explain why it's not? I mean, they have just not been educated the way that they should have been on the dangers of socialism and how it brings a nation down. On the other hand, radical Islam basically is composed of people who believe it is their religious requirement to destroy Israel, to destroy America. They see our way of life as one of debauchery and one to be taken down. We're infidels. So you have one system that wants to kill and destroy, and another that wants to quietly take over, as Khrushchev thought that the Soviet Union would take over the U.S. without firing a shot. But both are threats. Both can bring down a country. And we've got a lot of work to do to educate people and undo the miseducation that people have gotten over the years. But you understand too.
What?
Well, this wasn't for film. I'm just,
Oh,
you know.
I'm just so happy that there's someone in Washington
If you
who gets...
Google my name, you'll see. I tell my kids, don't Google my name, because there are all kinds of assaults on people like me. And Foxworthy has something when he says, when people hear a Southern accent, they immediately deduct 50 IQ points from how smart they think you are. But
if you're
you
telling
don't
the
have
truth, you get attacked.
Exactly. That's
By the enemy.
happens. Sure.
All the enemies that we're talking about. My last question. Okay. What? Okay. One more second. My last question is, we're all trying to understand how the economy crashed, and from my understanding, we were a free market system, and then the government stuck its little fingers in. Something about Barney Frank and a committee, and then in Clinton administration, and they made a law, and they told the banks, you have to give houses, mortgages to people who can't afford them. So basically, the socialists are saying the free market doesn't work, but free market does work. Socialism is what ruined it. Could you explain this?
Sure. That's exactly. And this it wasn't just a one-time thing. You had a system where we are providing more and more benefits for people who do not work. God bless you. Hope you get over that soon.
I think that was one of the enemy.
Yeah, I think so.
That was really rude.
Yeah. See, but that's what I'm talking about. You know,
Oh
the
my
kind of
gosh.
guys that go on and blog on your Facebook.
Oh my
and
gosh,
try
they're
to,
right in our capital. These
Yeah.
people who hate America.
Well, as you probably are aware, here on Capitol Hill, Al Awlaki, that this administration said was so dangerous that he needed to be killed by a drone bomb, and was killed in Yemen with a drone. He's led Capitol Hill staffers in a prayer meeting here on Capitol Hill. So those are the kind of things that are going on.
Back to what you were saying
Yeah.
about free market and...
Yeah, so you have providing more and more benefits. In fact, one of the things that drove me off the bench as a judge and made me think about running for Congress was since I handled felonies, I was seeing more and more single women coming before me for felony of welfare fraud. And the stories basically were the same, just changed some names, but would often hear the story of how they were bored with high school and somebody said, hey, just drop out and have a kid. The government will send you a check for every kid you can have, and they'd drop out. They'd have a kid out of wedlock, and then they'd find out there really wasn't enough money to live on, so they'd have another, thinking maybe that second check would help, and another, and they'd get further and further behind. And what it appeared clear was this government was unintentionally, meaning well, but unintentionally luring young single women into a rut from which they could not get out, the ones that came before me. So they would go out and get a job, and they wouldn't report the job because they were hoping with that income and what they got for child support from the government would be enough, and then that's welfare fraud if you don't report it. I never sent any of them to prison. I always put them on probation, and then would max them out with community service hours and tell them most of those would be knocked out if they just get a GED or a high school diploma. But the bottom line was, government is not supposed to lure people away from their potential. It is supposed to encourage and give incentive to reach potential,
Right.
not pull people away. But that's the kind of mentality that also came along and said, hey, let's force banks to give loans to people who can't afford the loans. Well, when banks were forced to do that, it set up a problem for the banks, and then it got worse. Somebody on Wall Street, which is just educated gambling, said, why don't we put a bunch of these mortgages together with a legal document that thick, and we'll call them a security. And then we can trade in securities, but you don't get to look at individual loans to figure out the value of a security. You just have to guess. And then people sold insurance to ensure that it had the value that it was supposed to, but that money all went to profit. None of it went to actually go in reserves to cover the claims when they came about.
Okay.
And that whole system nearly broke us.
Are those people who just passed us now, are they the enemy or were they one of us? Were they America lovers or haters? Because I think the America lovers are outnumbered here.
Well, it's hard to say, but you've got an awful lot of people that love America here, but some just think America will be better off as a socialist nation when everybody gets equally, not understanding that's when you bring a nation down. The Soviet Union could not survive. The Pilgrims couldn't survive. Even in the New Testament church, if you recall, Apostle Paul finally had to tell the church, you know what, new rule, if you don't work, you don't eat. So every time it's ever been tried, you have to come back around to this. Government is not supposed to take people's money to give to its favorite charities. It's supposed to provide for the common defense so that individuals can address their charities.
Thank you so much. One of the good guys. One of the good guys.